We'll go right to Dr. Duffy. All right, everybody, I'd like to call to order the meeting of Personnel Administration and Higher Education for today, April the 29th today. All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting? Supervisor Garrity, second by Supervisor Driscoll. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Or abstentions, that carries. Thank you. And yes, the first thing on our agenda this morning is an update from SUNY Adirondack. Dr. Duffy, welcome. Good morning.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. A couple updates. We're excited about commencement coming up on May 15th. And this year we are holding a mixed in-person and live streamed ceremony, which we're very excited about. We've got about 160 students that wanted to come in person. So we're splitting up the ceremony into 3 different sessions, keeping the limited number that meets the health and safety guidelines, and being able to honor both our students, and they're allowed to bring 2 guests per student to be able to participate in the ceremony. So we're very excited. And Supervisor Bramer, I'm not sure if you got the message about coming in maybe Monday to record your county message, but we'd love to have you part of the ceremony and appreciate the county also honoring a couple of our graduates. So we're looking forward to that. As I've reported before, our summer enrollment is doing very well, which we're super pleased to see. And that continues to trend a little bit ahead over last year. So that's good news for the college. Fall registration has just really started, and we haven't started registering new students yet. However, even though the total number of applications were a little bit down compared to last year, a promising trend is as we look at applications that have come in after January 1st, we're actually ahead of last year in that. So that's a good sign. Applications seem to be picking up, and interest in the college and starting in the fall. As we prepare to open our campus mostly in person, and a lot more in person than we are today. So we're excited about that. We're inviting people back on campus for campus tours, and our orientation programs will be partially in person this summer. So we'll start to see a lot more activity on campus, which everyone is really looking forward to. We're in the final stages of working through our budget. I'm happy to report that the Board of Trustees last week approved a tuition freeze. So we're not increasing tuition at all next year for students. We think this is the right time to do that, given the all of the consequences of COVID-19, that we want to keep our costs as low as possible for students. And so the board has approved that as part of our tuition and fee schedule for next year. The next step is we're just finalizing the budget to present back to the board in their May meeting, which will be towards the end of the month. And then I think we have a tentative schedule for a joint county meeting, as we typically do, June 4th. And that will be the opportunity for Warren and Washington County leaders to come together so we can talk about our budget. As we've shared with you, and particularly the county administrator and the finance folks, that we will be asking for the 2% increase in contribution from our counties, which translates to right around $40,000 from Warren County. So we would appreciate that support. It just helps us to maintain that contribution over time. And any time that the county contributes less, it impacts other parts of our funding, like chargebacks. So it is an important part of our stability in terms of finances. And we would appreciate that support when the time comes. And other than that, we're just wrapping up the semester, and we feel very fortunate that we've had a good semester given all the circumstances, and we're looking forward to inviting all of our students back in the fall. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Supervisor Bramer, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Duffy. That's great. We're so happy that the end of this semester is going well, and I am looking forward to recording the message. I'll get back to your staff about when I can come over.
Great.
And I would ask that the members of the committee make sure you stop by Amanda's office before you leave today for some information about the graduation I want to share with the committee. Also, good to hear about the enrollment going up. Thank you. That's great to hear. I was wondering if you have any stats on the percentages of your vaccination rollout on campus.
We haven't surveyed yet our students, so I can't give you any statistics on that. we have a general sense, I see Janelle was on the call here, that, the county has been great about partnering with us. And I think we're setting up our next clinic on campus for students next Tuesday. So we're working hard at making sure that all students know it's available to them. And we'll probably do some sort of quick survey before the end of the semester.
Great. That would be good, I think, if we can.
Yep.
Any questions from the committee? Anybody else in the gallery this morning for Dr. Duffy? All right, I don't see anything. Thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. Bye.
Yep. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Allen.
In your packet, there's the resolution tracking report. If anyone has any questions about that, please give me a call and I'd be glad to resolve those.
Thank you. Very good. Any questions now? All right, moving on. We're going to go to our county attorney report. Mr. Terwilliger.
Good morning, Audit. There are a couple of matters on here which can be comfortably reported here in an open meeting. There was a case of Empire State Normal versus Warren County. That case has been dismissed and is just being kept on a watch by the insurance in case there was any appeal on it. There's also a matter of a particular individual who the statute of limitations on a Michael Nichols statute of limitations case here, where the statute of limitations has passed for this individual to file a claim against Warren County for what his claimed injuries and damages are on that. But the other matters that we have really should be discussed in an executive session, calling into effect here Public Officers Law, Section 105D. We will be discussing pending, current, and even possibly proposed litigation involving the county. So those matters I really would prefer to discuss in an executive session.
Okay, understood. Thank you, County Attorney Terwilliger. I have on the list that we would go into executive session for Dickinson versus Warren County, as well as Morgan versus Warren County. Is there anything else for today's executive session? Robert, pull your mic in. Yep.
The matters of Kaplan versus Warren County, Morgan versus Warren County, John David Smith versus Warren County and others. And also the matter of Wester French versus Derek Williams and others, including Warren County on that matter. Also the matter of Poulos v. Warren County, Forest Enterprises v. Warren County, Maxon v. Warren County, and also some proposed litigation here of estate of Ryan Taylor v. Warren County and other municipalities, and the estate, not the estate, Lewis v. Warren County is one. Also Terry v. Warren County, that matter, and the cases of Barton and McKenna Frank v. Warren County, and in the case of LeClaire v. Vinson and Warren County also being a defendant on that, and the proposed litigation possibly of Keeley v. Warren County.
Okay, could I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss those cases just listed by the County Attorney Terwilliger? All right, thank you, Supervisor McGowan. And a second? Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. It'll just take us a minute to go over into executive session virtually.
Nice background there, Rachel.
Like this thing about
Nice
the
calming,
litigation.
running water,
We're good.
all right.
It'll-
Purity. They are beautiful wine.
We are on YouTube right now.
We're on YouTube.
We're ready to go. We're live on.
I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, we had that discussion in executive session. We do have one action item that we would like to bring forward. I'm missing Supervisor Garrity from my committee. That's okay. What I would like is a motion to authorize settlement in the Dickinson versus Warren County per the recommendation of our outside counsel, please. Supervisor McGowan on that motion. A second from Supervisor Driscoll. And I don't see any hands for discussion. I think we covered it in executive session. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. That carries, and we'll have Amanda work with our county attorney Terwilliger to come up with a written resolution for the board meeting. Okay. Just give me 1 second. Okay, the next item on our agenda is an update regarding the county attorney position. We have been working, Trish Nenninger in civil service helped us to come up with the beginning of the job description. And Mr. Moore, the county administrator, worked on it as well. It's been circulated through the committee and we've, by email. So we got some comments on that. I have also circulated it to the full board just recently. So if anyone has any comments on that, I'd be happy to look at those. One of the things I will say is that, Supervisor Conover had a concern about and I think Supervisor Garrity did as well, about the minimum requirements being 10 years of general legal practice. So that's been amended to say that 10 years of legal practice and without any specification about type of legal practice so that we can get a broader range of applicants, that the 10 years would be preferred but not required. So, yes, Supervisor Conover, do you have a comment?
Yes. First of all, thank you for many of my comments have been incorporated into the revised language, and I appreciate that. And not only in terms of the term, it's 10 years, but now it talks to, that we have a minimum requirement, or we're looking for somebody who's got the experience, right? The municipal experience as well. So I'm happy with that. And I'm also happy with the revision or designated committee, because sometimes these committees do change. And so I do appreciate consideration on that as well. I would, though, like to propose in the first paragraph, the sentence that begins, the county attorney reports to, and that's a follow-on from the previous sentence where it says the county attorney is accountable to the board of supervisors. And what I'd recommend there would be the insertion of the following: the county attorney reports to the board of supervisors, and I would add through the chair of the board and the chair of the designating committee. And I think that ties well to the bullet, or it's not a bullet, but the requirement down below that says is administratively accountable to the county administrator and generally reports to the board of supervisors through the personnel and higher education committee. And so what I would recommend on that first sentence is that that we insert the language, the county attorney reports to the board of supervisors through the chair of the board and the chair of the designated county committee, which is currently the personnel committee. And I think that flows better. And also, I think it's more in concert with, and I said I would take a look at the New York State Consolidated Law sections appropriate to this 500, 501, and 502, and also sections 450, which deal with the chair of the board. And so I would recommend that there be that insertion there, just for clarity. But other than that, I have no other comments.
Thank you, Supervisor Conover, for taking a look at it and carefully going through those laws. Is there any objection from the committee to that revision to the sentence that Supervisor Conover was mentioning? All right, not seeing any, we will make that change and
Thank you.
we'll move forward and we will get that out. So everyone knows before I go on, yes, Supervisor Stroud, you need to unmute.
Thank you. Yeah, the other concern I have about and I agree with Ron on his suggestion, but am I to understand that this is going to be a 2-year term for the county attorney?
Thank you, Supervisor Stroud, for that question. I'm going to actually defer that to Mr. Terwilliger to answer you on the legal term of the county attorney.
Under the county law, the county attorney's term is actually set to be coincide of the same duration as that of the county supervisors. It can't be longer than that. So in this sense, it would have to be a 2-year term.
Well, I don't know if home rule would override, but our Supreme Court is 10 years. Supreme Court of the federal government is lifetime. But there's reasons why they have longer terms, for our judges and for attorneys, and that's so that politics doesn't come into play so much. And I'm just worried about a 2-year term and the politics involved herein. I would personally like to see a longer term for whoever we point to be the county attorney. That's all.
Supervisor Driscoll?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I just wanted to point out that I just read Supervisor Leggett's chat information that the town of Chester has a 4-year term for supervisor, and I believe town of Warrensburg does also.
Well, we can look into that. I do believe that the term is set by New York State county law as the coinciding with the term of what is the majority of the Board of Supervisors. Maybe there's something that clarifies whether it's 2 or 4 years for us. I have always interpreted it to mean 2 years. But Mr. Twilliger, could you look into that for us?
I'll look into that. I have always interpreted it to be 2 years as well, but I will look into that.
Thank you. Great. And for the committee and for the full board, my plan is to have the applications sent back into us by a certain date. I don't want to leave it as a rolling deadline, to have a certain date for applications to be received. They will go through HR and civil service to do the initial review. But at that point, I would send all of the resumes to the entire committee to take a look at. And then if we want to decide on a subcommittee to do some initial interviews before bringing a set of people to the committee. That's my initial plan, but depending on how many applicants we get, if we only have a handful, then maybe we bring them all to the committee. I certainly do not want to limit anyone's ability to review the applicants. So if anybody has questions, whether you're on the committee or not, please just reach out to me. I'll be happy to share whatever information I have. So that's my plan going forward. I did have Mr. Terwilliger has one other request that I brought to his attention, and I think he's supportive of, so I'd like him to bring that forward to the committee if you're willing to hear it.
I wanted to float the idea before the committee of a contract with the county attorney's office to be able to obtain outside counsel for legal matters in a way as we need to, because we're going to be down really 2 people in our office, and we're going to have 2 attorneys now for a while. And there might come a circumstance where, just because of expediency, because of a time limitation, or because of expertise, needed, we're going to have to, in a sense, farm something out or obtain some help from outside counsel. I wanted to put that idea before the committee to see what they think about a contract authorizing the county attorney's office to obtain outside counsel for certain legal matters like this. These would be things not covered, obviously, by insurance. It might be to obtain, it might even be just to get a advice on something. It might be something minor. Usually I would anticipate it to be something where we just can't handle it because of a workload or because it's something that requires a certain particular expertise in an area that's very ultra specialized. Also would not want it to be of a large dollar amount. I mean, a proposal might be something like $5,000 a month maximum. It could be less than that. The reason why I would say $5,000 a month maximum is because that's the amount of a vacant attorney position we will have with Attorney Kissane leaving. We'll have her leaving. I would be the acting county attorney, at least temporarily. Ryan Dickey would be our other assistant county attorney, and we would essentially be vacant that third attorney position.
So I think what Mr. Terwilliger is looking for is authorization from the committee to seek outside counsel from a firm that would, or firm, multiple firms, depending on the specialization. And I suggested to him that he look for firms that would provide municipal rates. We don't want to pay, New York City rates, and that his authorization would only be up to, like he said, $5,000 a month in those expenditures, not to exceed that without further committee and board approval. Supervisor McGowan, and I see you as well, Supervisor Conover.
Thank you. I think that's a great idea, and I want to thank you for bringing it up. I believe we kind of talked about this before when we heard that our county attorney was leaving us. So, no, I think that gives us a great option to keep our work moving forward in what we do here at the county. So I'm in agreement of it.
Is that a motion, Supervisor McGowan?
I'd make a motion, yes. I feel comfortable with that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do I have a second?
You got Ron.
Yeah, Supervisor Conover, is that a second?
Yeah, to move it to discussion, sure.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Supervisor Conover.
Oh, thank you. Well, I just wanted to recite for the committee the sections of the state law that pertain to this. And it said, I don't think it could be more clear. It says within the limits of the appropriation, that would be the $5,000, right? The county attorney, now Mr. Terwilliger, may employ counsel to assist in the civil action and proceedings brought by or against the county or any county officer in his official capacity. So I think that my reading of that is that those powers are already invested in the county attorney, and that the financial powers, however, remain with the board. And so I'm not sure at this stage, what role beyond the appropriation of funding we have relative to the powers that are already invested in the county attorney. But I do appreciate him coming to the committee, obviously, and the communication and the goodwill. And I think that's the best way to move forward. But I just want everybody to be aware that this possibilities was recognized and is spelled out within the state law. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great, Supervisor Conover. And of course, I have encouraged Robert to be transparent about this and to seek the committee's authorization for that $5,000 appropriation, which I do not believe they have in their budget right at this time. So I believe we would have to send this over to finance. I'm looking at Ms. Allen, send this to finance to identify a funding stream. Well, unless they have it in their budget already because of the employees that are not there. Maybe we can go back to Robert, but I saw that Supervisor Garrity had a question.
Well, no question. I agree. But with the, I'm just asking, you sent us out the information about county attorney and we sent in questions. I didn't hear back. Or did I hear back? And then is the job description the same as was mailed out to us? Because it's not in our packet.
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. I did not email you back directly. I apologize for that, but
Oh, that's fine.
I did see your comments, and after talking with several supervisors, I sent it out just last night as a revised version. And we talked about it while you were in the coffee room just now.
I didn't get it.
I'm sorry. You should have gotten it. I sent it out to all. I just hit Warren County supervisors.
Last night?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look. It
So
doesn't- it doesn't show up. I didn't get it. So.
I received it this morning, and I think there was certain recommendations were in red, at least on my computer.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Never got it.
Well, Supervisor Garrity,
that's
I will
fine.
be sure you get it, and we can talk directly. We have not put it out there. Trish is here, and we can talk with her.
No,
if
I
you-
want just a copy for my records.
Yes,
Yeah, I agree with the committee, but I never got the updated and never heard back.
I didn't email you back. I apologize for
Thank
that,
you.
but I got your questions and did take them into consideration.
All right, thank you.
So there's that. Robert, Supervisor Stroud, if you just give me 1 second, I'll come back to you. Robert, do you feel that a funding source needs to be identified, or do you think that you can come up with the money out of your budget as is now? Or do you need to come back to me? Because I know you're not even acting attorney yet.
I definitely need to come back on the finances, and I would definitely want to speak with appropriate people in finance on the finance committee and the treasury to see what kind of funding is available within the budget on that. I don't want to be doing this willy-nilly as far as the county attorney's office sending out work. It's something that I want to get the feedback from the committee on it, and that's why we push this idea forward now. But I definitely do need to get a handle on the budget, and that's not something I can really discourse on now at all. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Ms. DiLorenzo, do you have a comment to add to help us with this?
Sure. Knowing that the county attorney's position will be open, you certainly could, at a board meeting with approval, you could transfer from a from a salary code, because that's where you should have some money when you don't have that position filled for a period of time. Of course, that would be up to the budget officer to, but that would be where I would think the most logical place to get that money would be from.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, Supervisor Stroud, I didn't forget about you. Go ahead.
No, forgive me, I'm not on the committee, but are we talking about number 9 yet?
No, we're not there yet, Supervisor Stroud.
All right, okay, then never mind.
Okay. We do have a motion on the table, and I would like to call the question on that, and then we can, in the meantime, before the board meeting, sort out the exact funding stream if we don't need to do that at the finance meeting coming up right next. All those in favor, Supervisor Conover, yep.
Yeah, I just want to know, as far as I'm concerned, it's totally up to finance. My interest here is that transfer out of contingency if you need to, transfer internally if you need to, do what you need to do to make sure the county's interests are being represented. And that's my sense of this. And I would hope that would be the sense of the committee as well. But obviously defer to the budget officer and finance to decide the best course. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, let me just get myself organized again.
The only thing I would request that I get a
Supervisor
copy.
Garrity?
I would like a copy of it,
Absolutely.
because I'm gone into the black hole.
You haven't gone into the black hole. We'll make sure that
Well, you better
Get you
check
that.
my email.
I was just going to say, we'll ask IT to make sure that your email is in the Warren County Supervisors list. Yes, Amanda.
I just wanted to make one point of clarification. So the motion that you just made was to authorize the contract with outside counsel, and that Robert is going to come back for the funding aspect when he has that information. And that will need to go to finance to transfer money wherever we're going to get that from. But at this point, we're not doing the finance part. It's just the contract, correct?
Nope. I think what Supervisor Conover raised earlier is he has the legal authority.
I'm good with this. I hope the committee is, and leave the finance to finance. The finance people, it doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't have to come back to me on this
Yeah.
committee.
So Just wait till I call, please, Supervisor Conover. We're gonna send it to finance to identify the funding stream. Maybe they will say it can either come out of their budget code as a transfer, or if we need to take money from contingency, we will do that, as Supervisor Conover did say. Thanks for making sure that's clarified before we move on. Okay, gentlemen, yes, on this particular item?
Yes,
Okay, Supervisor McGowan.
thank you. Do I need to amend that then, since I brought it up?
No, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Beatty, did you have something?
Yeah, as chair of the finance committee, obviously, finding the funding would be paramount. I just want to let everybody know we've got about 265,000 in contingency fund if the funds couldn't be found in the county attorney's budget. So I'm just throwing that out there as an FYI.
Okay, thank you. And I'm making eye contact with the budget officer, but if you want to say anything now, or you can withhold comments till later.
Well,
Supervisor Thomas.
if you have an open county attorney position, that salary should cover this, at least for the time being. And if money starts running short in their budget, then come back for contingent funding.
Well, this is something I'm not entirely clear on, but since you brought it up, Supervisor Thomas, I don't want to let it go and not bring it to the committee. I believe that there is an indication that Mr. Terwilliger will be paid at the county attorney's salary level. So we might not have all of the savings that we're thinking about, but we also have a paralegal who's not in right now, so that there will be savings at least in that budget code.
Right. So you still have 2 vacant positions. So, you know, at some point you might need to come back and request more money.
But we might be okay as well. Right. Chairwoman Sieber.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Thomas, for bringing that up. I don't think this needs to be discussed before the full board, but I do have some questions regarding that. Looking back at some of our resolutions that from 2016, when we tabled a resolution regarding an acting department head, a deputy commissioner to go into the position of commissioner. I'm not well versed with the way the law reads regarding county attorney, but I have had a couple of people bring up some concerns to me. So maybe I could run those by you, Supervisor Thomas, after for some guidance before we officially sign off on those things.
Sure.
I just wanted to let you know, since you brought it up, there have been some questions about it, and we're working on getting the answers.
Okay.
So what that total amount really would be that would be vacant.
All right.
Good. Thank you. Moving on to our HR director, Ms. Figueroa. If you can come up to the podium, that would be helpful so everyone can hear you, and they can see you if you just adjust the computer screen there.
Okay, good morning. There are 4 items on my agenda this morning. A and B are the reports that I provide monthly that are for your information. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about those. The third item, C, is to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to correct the hourly pay rate for the associate planner per diem from $30 $15.87 an hour to $35.46.53 per hour. This is not actually a change. Unfortunately, when this item came through last month, the salary was inadvertently reduced. So I don't know how that happened, but I'm here to fix it. So the $35 rate is what the person has been paid. So we didn't mean to give her a decrease, certainly.
Okay, thank you. This was the one that did come to us last month as a clerical correction. And now we need another clerical correction.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Could I have I need a motion to that, correct? You need a motion?
Yep.
Could I have a motion from the committee, Supervisor McGowan? Second from Supervisor Garrity. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. And the last item has to do with when retired Warren County employees from time to time return to county employment, in a position that may be eligible for benefits, they need to be treated essentially as an active employee and a retiree to get the benefit that they earned of maybe having a lower contribution percentage by virtue of their retirement status. However, they are still actively employed, and that can impact other things like eligibility for Medicare and things like that. So essentially what I'm asking is that when somebody who's a retiree returns to a full-time benefits eligible position, we allow them to keep their contribution that they earned as a retiree while keeping them on the active employee roster.
Okay, Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah. I read that. Jackie stated that it has to be this way. See, I guess I have a problem with this. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm able to retire. I'm excited. I retire. I take my pension. I take everything that the county or state or whatever can give me. All of a sudden, a position comes up. I come back. I apply for it. I get hired. And now you come back and say, "Oh, I want to pay in what I was paying out." You know, what happens if it was 20 years ago where you retired? You know what I'm saying? It was so much cheaper. Now it's so much more expensive. It doesn't sound right to me. Is there? Am I seeing this wrong?
I see Chairwoman Severs. Do you want to respond, Jackie? You have a
Well, so because we have so many different bargaining units that have different contribution levels to health insurance, and then within each bargaining unit, we have different levels. So if you were hired before this date, you pay 18%. If you were hired after that day, you pay 25%. So people go into a bucket of what percentage they're going to pay for their health insurance. And that changes even for retirees. So if the PBA goes up to 18%, the retirees from PBA also go up to 18%. The difference is if you retire from, let's say, PBA and you have 18%, and then you come back in a position that's CSEA, that now you're hired into that position after a certain date, you would go up to 25%. So it's the same health insurance, but the rates differ based on the bargaining unit and the dates of hire. So if you're a retiree in a certain bucket and you return, basically, should you be penalized and have to pay more for your health insurance? I mean, you still retired, you still put in your 20 or 30 years. So we were trying to find the balance between the two.
May I?
Sure, Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you. I don't look at as being penalized. You retired, you left. Now you come back, not even in a PDA, but in a totally different thing. I don't think it's fair for any of the other employees that could have, taken that position that, didn't have the outfit. To me, it just sounds someone's trying to be cheap. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I just don't think it's fair for everybody else that comes in afterwards. I mean, I understand if someone retires, from a department and then they decide to come back from that department. And we did that in a circumstances as an employee that actually we needed them in the health department. We came back and we gave her what she was making before to come in to help us get through this pandemic. That, to me, coming back in the same department of what she retired before, we paid her. I can understand that, but you're coming back and you're going to a totally different department. To me, it just doesn't sound fair. And I have a problem with it. And I'm sorry for whatever individual it might be. And I'm not trying to make a stink, but I have to answer to the constituents out there, and they see this and they'll say, well, that doesn't seem fair. That's my feeling. Open for discussion, I guess. Thank you.
It is open for discussion. Supervisor Driscoll, and then I'll go outside the committee if I don't have any other.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And I certainly don't disagree with everything that Mr. McGowan was pointing out. We have an immediate need in a number of our departments for skilled professionals who have experience. Health services is one of those. We're about to or are currently experiencing a need for individuals up at Countryside. If we can convince, not put a gun to their head, but convince a retired individual to come back and serve again, to do the county's business and assist those departments. We don't have to, go through a learning curve. We have a proven individual who knows that job, knows county government, and right now, a number of our departments are have vacancies, are looking for good people. If we can pull from some of those retirees, I think that we benefit from that. So,
Supervisor Driscoll, I guess I'll ask you if that's a motion to bring this to the table for our committee.
I would make a motion to bring it to the table. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a second from the committee?
This is the resolution you gave us?
Yes, the revised one from this morning.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Second by Supervisor Garrity. Supervisor Wild.
Madam Chair, thank you again. I'm not on the committee, but maybe board members are treated differently, but I believe when I signed in for my benefits, I had an option to sign in or deny it. And I'm curious if retirees have the ability to do the same when they come back. Can they just deny the medical insurance provided by the county and still have that same medical insurance through their retirement?
I'm going to come back to Jackie just a second, okay? Can you think about your answer to that one? And I'll come back to you in a second. I forgot to pick up Chairwoman Sieber.
That's okay. Jackie, go ahead and answer that, and then I'll make my comments next.
Sure. They can refuse enrollment, under their new employment and keep their retirement benefits until they turn 65. Then we run into Medicare eligibility rules. You can't have Medicare as a primary payer if you're full-time active employed. And that's basically where we've come to. So this person who did say, nope, no, thank you, I'm going to keep it as a retiree because it's less expensive for me, now is up against a bigger decision because a birthday is coming. And that's going to affect their ability to stay on our plans because you can't enroll in Medicare if you're full-time active.
Benefits eligible. Right, because I just want to point that out too. We do have several people who come back and work for us after they've retired. However, if they're lower than a certain hour amount per week, they're not benefits eligible. So they stay retired. This doesn't apply to them. This is only for that person who's retired and then also comes back full-time benefits eligible. Supervisor Garrity?
Well, isn't the question here, this person is just turning the age that you get to Medicaid, right? That's
Correct.
why this is all being brought up?
Well, it is possible it will affect other employees, but the one that this was raised to our attention because of a particular individual who is about to turn the Medicare age eligible. But this resolution would affect other people, not just this one individual who brought this concern to light. Does that answer your question?
Not really. I guess I don't. But I'm okay with doing this, but I'm just confused because there's different rules for the county. If you don't mind, if I ask Jackie.
Ask the question to the committee, and we'll.
Is there different rules for the county?
Are there different rules for the county employees?
No, for our health insurance.
For health insurance. Okay. Jackie, could you just run that through one more time about the
Sure.
Medicare and what happens when you're eligible for benefits and you turn 65?
Correct. These are not Warren County rules or Blue Shield rules. These are Medicare rules, federal Medicare rules, that if you are 65 Medicare eligible
Right.
and retired, then you come off the active employee plan and you must switch over to the Medicare plan and add the Humana Medicare Advantage plan. However, under Medicare rules, Medicare will not be the primary payer if you're full-time active employed in a benefits eligible position at an employer over a certain size. And we are over a certain size and this person's in a position, and we have other people who are similarly situated. They just haven't hit that milestone yet. So we are trying to do one rule now that says,
I think I get what you're saying.
okay.
Good. Chairwoman Sieber?
Thank you, Chairwoman Bramer. I know this sounds complicated because it has been complicated over the last 6 weeks. We have continued to talk about the different options as it relates to not only this individual, but what happens when an individual turns 65, where they've put their service in many cases, it may be law enforcement or a firefighter or different entities where they could retire early at 20 years. And we know many reasons why that happens. And then we're fortunate enough to have multiple employees, not just at the county, but other areas that decide they want a second career and they want to come back, or whatever the case may be when they're working in benefit eligible positions. And as Supervisor Wild indicated, many times they decline that health insurance. That is in fact what has happened, but it is the first time ever that we've had an individual in a retired but full-time status who is eligible for the Medicare as a result of his age or her age. And the point being is that as we move forward and we expand upon this and we look at this situation, we want to make sure we have a resolution that documents what we've done here, both after speaking with our treasurer, who has provided us with that being good government, of course, for an audit, and then also to our personnel office, who we don't certainly want to be in the position of making a determination every single time on a personal set of circumstances. So what we've done is spent with our county administrator more, with our personnel chair, our finance chair, our county treasurer, the individual in question here, the personnel office, have spent a considerable amount of time also with our Social Security's office and our benefit office to take a look at what these options are. This, in fact, provides an opportunity where it's not an increase to the county. We're able to continue to provide the retired what this individual earned over his or her course of service, and then also be able to provide the benefits when he's eligible or she is eligible at 65 years old. That's why the resolution is before you. And I can't be more thankful to both Jackie and to Mike for the hard work that they've put into coming up with this type of resolution so we can move forward. So thank you for your hard work.
Supervisor Wild?
Madam Chair, thank you again. I think my sense is to give benefits to an employee that's earned the right to retire is something that makes sense. We want to encourage people to stay here for the longevity of their career. Maybe to help, what are the financial implications to the county for this? I can't imagine it's an awful lot of money because it's basically the same medical plan. Or Jackie, can you help with that?
Jackie, can you answer that one?
It's the exact same medical plan. It's a matter of the percentage contribution that the individual is paying. And in this specific instance, it's 7% difference on a $600 plan. I don't do the math in my head.
But Jackie, there is no difference to the county because they're staying on their same plan.
Correct. But in each circumstance, it might be different because it depends on the bargaining unit that the person retired from versus what one they came back in. So it would be a little bit of a different number. I have a dream that one day everybody will pay the same percentage and we won't have to have these conversations, but we're not there yet. So.
Thank you. Supervisor Gowan, and then I'll come to you, Supervisor Conover.
Thank you. So this individual has the option to sign up for Medicare at 65.
No, this individual cannot do that because they are a full-time employee here. And that's per Medicare rules. Supervisor.
All right. So what are they paying now? that they've been back? The lower rate or the higher rate?
Well, Supervisor McGowan, I would encourage us to stay away from talking about this particular situation. The
Right,
person
fine.
has been paying their rate per their retired status.
So, all right, so due to light of everything, I guess I could support this. Now that, you know, for what our chairperson Seaver said and Jackie and the more of the explanation, it is a complicated situation, and I guess we really need to keep good employees. And I guess we should be thankful that we've had retirees that want to come back and still work for us. So I'll stand behind the resolution. Thank you.
Supervisor Conover, did you still want to say something?
Yeah, I thought I understood this, and I'm not so sure I do any longer. But let me put it this way. Let me run three scenarios. I'm a full-time county employee, and I'm going to go to some other job. This doesn't apply to that because, or does this apply to that? For example, I'm working in a part of county government where I'm at 18%, but I'm going to go to another full-time job somewhere else that's at 25%. And so is what you're saying is that therefore I can carry my 18% to the other, or are we specifically, or am I retiring in the first job? But I'm retiring before I'm healthcare eligible. So when I go to the new job, I need healthcare. And so therefore I want my healthcare at 18%, not at 25%. Because if you're retired, my point is what I want to take off the screen is that what I want is if you're retired and you come back, you have no reason to need health care because you have health care. You may come back, as long as you stay below the cap, the state retirement cap, you're good to go. I see no incentive. Why would a retired person that has health care come back to active duty, stay below the tax cap, and then want to sign up for health care again? They have retirement. They have, unless what you're saying is somebody that's retiring before they're eligible for health care. Is that what we're talking about here?
Right. Jackie, could you just clarify though, it doesn't apply when someone changes their, this position that they're in. They would have to comply with the new percentage unless they're in this situation where they have already retired, officially retired, then come back full-time and had not yet been eligible for Medicare.
Correct. I think the key piece for this is the Medicare eligibility and what would happen if we don't do this. They lose their ability to enroll in that Medicare. So somebody may have to say, well, I can't work full time anymore because it is going to affect my healthcare coverage.
I see. So what you're saying is,
hold on. When someone, you didn't answer my first question that I think would help Supervisor Conover about when you switch positions though, that has nothing to do with retiring. When you switch positions and get into a different role, are you still at that lower percentage because of when you were originally hired at the county, or do you go bump up to the new percentage?
You follow the rules of.
Are you still at that lower percentage?
Unit. So if you go from
18
corrections to CSCA, there may be an increase, it may be a decrease depending where you're going to and from.
Okay.
We keep your county original hire date as long as you're continuous service, but you follow the bargaining unit that you're a part of.
Supervisor Conover, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I get it now. So what you're saying is because of the rules of Medicare, if they did this, they could not have Medicare. In other words, what you're saying is that they're applying for health care again because if they do this, they won't have health care. In other words, there's a reason why they're doing this. It's because It's because if they don't do it, then they're not going to be eligible under Medicare. Is that correct?
Right.
Correct.
Okay, I get it now. I'm not sure that's everyone gets it, but sorry if I'm the last one to get it, but I think I get it now. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to call the question. I think most people understand. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you for walking us through that one, Jackie. I think that's it. All right, hopefully we can get through these next few a little bit more quickly. On health services, we have a request related to early intervention service coordinator. Could I have a motion for that, please? Supervisor Conover, second by Supervisor Garrity. Any questions? This came through Director Jones. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. The next one came through the Office of Aging. I believe this came through committee. A request to create and fill a meal site position at grade 2 and then delete the grade 4 position.
I guess it
Do I-
came through committee. I'll make a motion.
Supervisor Garrity, second by Supervisor Conover. Any discussion? Okay. I do have a concern about this one being so low of a grade for that meal site manager. But that's just my position. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm opposed, Amanda. Thank you. All right. Up to the sheriff's office. Supervisor Diamond is here, and so is the sheriff, as well as our deputy. A request to create and fill a new position of patrol officer. Okay, this is for the fingerprinting, I believe.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Supervisor McGowan. Are there any questions on this one? I think we've gone around on this one. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you. And I'll call on Supervisor Diamond for this next one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not a member of this committee, but the issue came up in my Public Safety Committee, and as a result of looking closely at our Financial Disclosure and Ethics Committee policies, I also examined the nepotism clause in that policy. So I started to look in greater detail in regards to how that was applied to Warren County specifically. I also looked at other communities, other counties within New York State, and the counties that I could get some information on. There was about 57 different counties, and some had independent policies. I think there was 9 of them, but I wanted to go in a little bit more detail in regards to our current policy. I look at the policy, and I also met with our personnel committee to understand some of our hiring policies that we undertake here on a regular basis. So I started to take a look again at civil service. In civil service, you have competitive and non-competitive. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the differences, but I was looking at the language in our nepotism policy, and it's very restrictive if someone wants to go through the civil service policy. So I asked at that point in time that this committee take a look at the policies and reduce some of the restrictions in our nepotism policy to allow those that may want to be in corrections, that may want to be in public safety, or may want to be in other areas that are civil service competitive tested or non-competitive positions. So I asked the committee to come up with some revisions that would permit individuals of family members an opportunity, once they sit down and test, pass an agility test, pass background tests, pass psychological tests, to have an opportunity to serve. And I can say that comfortably because within the city of Glens Falls, we don't have a nepotism policy that references our public safety, whether it was police or fire. In my experiences with that is that there were members of the community that wanted to aspire to grow up like their parents, specifically fire. And these people lived and created were a foundation through years of growing up in that environment to become good serving officials for those departments. So specifically, I talked to the fire chief, and there's 6 different families, outstanding families, in that came through the Glens Falls Fire Department, and there was a family, 2 families that came through the police department. And I would ask that we develop, and it looks like in this particular case, we have modified through efforts of several members of the board here and department heads to permit people that aspire to be public safety servants or employees of Warren County. So the revisions are here. I think this is the time to bring it to the Personnel Committee. I'm hoping the Personnel Committee will forward that on to the full board, because at this point in time, it looks like item number 9, we're looking to have revisions to the Warren County Ethics and Disclosure Law. I look at the law that's been redeveloped. I think it's been fine-tuned to a point where it makes sense. The last time we had any revisions was in 2014, which was specifically related to nepotism and nepotism only. I can't find any information why that policy was drafted. Prior to that, our last revisions to the Ethics and Disclosure Law occurred in 1990. So it's time to not only update and revise the Warren County Ethics and Disclosure Law, but also include Section 16, which is references to nepotism. So that I leave that with you folks today, that I think the law, the changes that have been made to the law now, if the Board of Supervisors feels comfortable with in supporting this, is going to better our opportunities going forward. So.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Diamond. Just hold on. I want to make sure, we do have this. There were some other objectives for looking at the ethics policy, particularly the disclosure form. A lot of supervisors, since we just filled out this form, had concerns about all of the questions that were being posed in that. And so there is in your packet the ethics policy that's been updated for your consideration. So without objection, I would like to move number 9 up on the agenda to open that for discussion now.
I have some questions. Do I ask them now, or do I ask them?
That's what I'm asking the committee. Are you ready to take this up now? Anyone have objections? Okay, I'm going to go to Supervisor McGowan and then to Supervisor Gary.
Oh, I was going to make that motion.
I don't think we need a motion. I just
All right.
wanted to make sure everyone was okay since I'm moving things around. Supervisor Gary.
Okay. Was this sent out to us, and who made the changes to the policy? Because it's not redlined, so you know the changes that were made. Was it ever sent out to the, because I feel like I'm not part of the committee, because I didn't see this. Was this sent out?
It was sent out. Amanda, could you?
Was it sent out with the agenda, the 64 pages? Was it redlined so we know the changes to it?
It was not redlined.
It's not redlined. Supervisor Gary, there were several changes that were made throughout. I'm happy to go through those today.
What part of we made the changes? Who's the we that made the changes?
There were a lot of people involved in the process. I was sort of managing the document. I know I worked with Chairwoman Sieber. I worked with Supervisor Diamond. We ran it through the sheriff's office to look at this particular piece. We've also worked with the county attorney. I think County Administrator Moore was looking at it at some pieces, and then as we know, he's not available this week, so he hasn't been super involved in that part. There were other supervisors involved. If you have any questions, this is the time to bring them up now.
Yeah, my questions are, how come we're not involving the members of the Personnel Committee, and how come we're not sending it out as one document so we can read over? You did for the county attorney's position, made the comments, we don't get a response, and then, now we got to I don't know how many pages of this that you got. If you printed out the full agenda, you would have seen, but it didn't, I don't think it said, and you don't know the changes made. I just feel like I'm not part of the committee anymore, or I get left off. So that's my concern. I mean, I'm for making the changes. I've talked to Mayor Diamond about it. I'm for the changes, but I just would have liked, and now all of a sudden it gets sprung on it. The changes have been made.
Well, Supervisor Garrity, you know my number and you can call me. There is no intent to try to exclude you. Of course, you're vice chair of the committee, so you definitely.
And I definitely feel I've been left out, so.
Chairwoman Sieber.
Thank you. I think this is a situation where, all our committee chairs are working really hard at putting forward different initiatives and ideas, much like occupancy tax, where you've had an opportunity to work with tourism on, say, the OCTEX application or the scoring sheet, and you try to get a draft together before you bring it to committee, and you ask committee then to give you feedback and look at things, and then you continue to update it after that. And so that's exactly the process. We thought what you were doing with tourism was a good idea as well. So what we tried to do with this initiative, which was brought forth by many members. I know Supervisor Bruno had spoke to me, Diamond, Bramer, Beatty, McGowan. We met with our county attorney's office. Ryan Moore also, we put together a work group. I believe this was also talked about at Criminal Justice, but Tammy DiLorenzo, Amanda Allen, Mike Colvin, Andrea Hogan, and I think there were a few other people in terms of this work group. And the reason it went to a work group was because so many people had so many different comments that we didn't want to have a 3-hour discussion at personnel on bringing in the idea of utilizing a computer program. We've had a lot of talk lately about our sexual harassment policies, our cyber policies, and we wanted to make sure we were covering our ethics obligation. And so Mike Colvin had looked at like a quick training to the way the state does it on the ethics law. And the other issue too had been our county attorney last year, assistant county attorney, Ryan Dickey, had also talked about the concerns that we have all of the state requirements, but there were updates that needed to be made to our ethics policy, and that with each term, we should be looking at updating our policies. So this was enacted in 1970, updated in 90, looked again in 2014. And then because of the different issues that were coming up through committees, the request was made to have this reviewed. So I think this is the appropriate time, a lot like the discussions that I'm sure we'll have about OCTEX apps, or maybe it's about the solar stuff that Brad put together a work group on. And so that's what's in front of you today. The reason about the red line was simply that in going back and forth between all these different versions, a couple of those changes had gotten lost. Amanda does have the red line, but it's really tough to read. But certainly can do a cross comparison on that. But Robert Twilliger spent a couple hours the other night looking through everything to make sure it was accurate before it came to this committee for all of your input, and worked really hard to make sure it got out ahead of time. So I appreciate that it was out ahead of time. I think that was a lot of work on behalf of our administrator and many other people to get you a draft that you could consider today.
Many people. I will reiterate that it was a lot of work, and as chair, I'm trying to get this around so you can take a look at it and review it. I'd really like you to turn your attention to the new disclosure form. It's a lot shorter, and like Chairwoman Sieber said, this gives us the protections that we didn't have before, so that we're not disclosing all of our personal data. One thing I really don't like is, disclosing the names of my minor children. They're not out there making money. Anyway. I did see some hands up, and so I'll go around. Supervisor Conover, you're up.
To get back to the policy itself and the wording of the policy, I don't have a problem with, and I thought an argument, anytime we've had to deal with this in the past, I thought that it was an interesting argument that was being made that competitive civil service positions, that process is there to afford everybody an opportunity, to provide everybody access, and then it's a competitive process, and so why that process is there for a reason, and it's to make sure that the people that are coming in are the best of the best, right? And so I don't have any problem with amending our nepotism policy as it relates to competitive civil service positions. What I don't know today is I'm not sure how this new policy deals with exempt and non-competitive positions. In other words, in civil service, you have competitive, then you have exempt, and you have non-competitive positions. And so I can support this as it relates to competitive positions. As has been mentioned, you have an exam. You may, in some cases, have physical exams, psychological. You got a whole process you have to go through. And I don't know that we should foreclose anyone from participating and to join public service because they have a relative that's in county government. On the non-competitive and the exempt, on the other hand, I don't know because I'm not able. I don't know all the positions, and I'm not sure that I can evaluate how this change affects that. My cursory reading of this would be that the department appointing officer could appoint to non-competitive and exempt positions. And the problem I have with that is that if that's the case, then there isn't a competitive process. So I'll give you a worst case scenario. You have an exempt position, the secretary to a department head, right? It's exempt position because it's confidential. Well, is my reading of this that, yeah, the department head would be able to go forward and appoint basically whoever they wanted to that position, including a family member. I'm not sure the safeguards are here, and I would say the same thing on a non-competitive position. The same thing would apply. So I support this as it relates to competitive positions, but I'm uneasy as it relates to non-competitive and exempt positions. Now, if there's somebody that could respond and I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go around for comments, and then maybe we can come back to Ms. Nenninger if we need to about the competitive issue. I agree with you that is the intent, that it is for competitive positions, there is a process and there's already protections, and other positions may not be so. So that's a good point and well taken, and I appreciate your call yesterday about this. Supervisor Diamond.
Thank you very much. To Supervisor Conover's point, civil service rules do not apply a department head. It says right here, item 2, if civil service rules do not apply, a department head may undertake appointment, hire, promote, discipline, or discharge a relative if no other county officer or employee can undertake the action. And the department head in advance obtains approval from the entire Board of Supervisors, which may seek a written advisory opinion from the Board of Ethics before any action can take place. So I think that there's protection of language in that paragraph that references the non-competitive positions, but they all are civil service. As I read that, if someone wants to go ahead and hire a family member, they're going to need pre-approval from the board and possibly, some a written advisory opinion from the Board of Ethics. So I think I see some protection in this law that's been drafted that references your concerns.
That is a good point, Supervisor Diamond, too. I still think I'd like to ask Trish Nenninger to come up, and with respect to that particular paragraph, Ron, if you could take a look at it where it says if civil service rules do not apply, I think it might be appropriate to say if competitive civil service rules do not apply. And is there a little bit better way to say that?
Yeah, I think now you're beginning to go to exactly to the point I'm making, and I think the remedy that Jack has been pointing out here, which is it's not wide open. There's a process that actually defers the decision, if you will, to the Board of Supervisors or to some outside entity. And if that's what Jack is saying, then that begins to really satisfy my concern. Yes.
Great. So Ms. Nenninger, could you speak to that, please, about the positions in the county that may be civil service, but not necessarily competitive? Those are the ones that we want to run through this additional process where it comes to the Board of Supervisors.
So competitive positions. So for the section 16B1A, where we're talking about pursuant to civil service rules, I think Supervisor Conover, that's where, from what I understand, we would interpret as competitive positions. Number 2 would be anything that wasn't competitive positions. So competitive positions are typically positions for which there is a written civil service exam, and there's a process as defined generally by Supervisor Diamond. And Supervisor Diamond and I talked about this at some length, and I think he summarized well what competitive appointments bring to the table for your issues as to nepotism. So if the way I'm looking at this is if we change that language and say undertaken for positions for competitive positions, some language like that versus other positions, then you're distinguishing. That distinction goes to the hiring process from my perspective, and I've said this. So then the question becomes, so for nepotism issues, would you be treating competitive versus non-competitive employees different during the term of their employment? So for DPW, you have many competitive and non-competitive positions. If you're in the highway, MEOs, HEOs are non-competitive. They would come in, they are appointed based on having to meet their minimum qualifications. So their minimum qualifications might be a CDL and a certain number of years working in a highway experience. So if you have that, you're going to fall under 2, where it says right now civil service rules do not apply. I think we would put something non-competitive, exempt, and unclassified, and then that would have those rules. The thing just to keep in mind on this is that for appointments, so if you're coming up and you're appointed, you apply for an exam, you're in the top 3, one of those 3 candidates is chosen, you go through that civil service process that Supervisor Diamond was describing. So in a department like DPW, once you're in employment and you're either non-competitive or competitive employee, would you be treated differently in those positions? So if you're an HEO, then you're going to get promoted to a highway construction supervisor, and you would have a different status for appointment. And so I just wanted to point out that's one distinction I see. But
I'll come back to you in just one moment, Supervisor Conover. I do want, on the supervisory side, as far as there shouldn't, the same rules will apply. Then we do not want a relative supervising a relative. So that is specifically prohibited. And they must make an alternate supervisory arrangement. If that can't be made, then my position is the relative can't be hired or can't be placed in that position where there's direct supervision. And that's covered in that paragraph C. As long as they can make an alternate arrangement, it would be fine. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I think with the change that the chairwoman has recommended, I think that addresses the issue. And Trish, you bring up a very good point. Let's run a real world scenario. Let's talk about an MEO. So I'm the superintendent of highways and I want to hire my brother or my son or whatever to an MEO position. Now that's not a tested position, but under these rules, if I understand it correctly, what you're saying is that's going to have to come to the board. In other words, that falls into item 2, that I'm not going to be able to hire my relative. If it was a tested position, I could, but as a non-tested position, that MEO is going to have to come to the board for approval. And as this chairwoman has pointed out, alternate administrative procedures are going to have to be put in place should the board allow that to happen. Am I understanding this correctly?
Well, Ron, I would say on the MEO, I believe that someone other than in the scenario where you're hiring an MEO, hopefully the department would get someone else to make the hiring decision, and then it wouldn't come to the Board of Supervisors. The only reason it would rise to our level is if there's no other person to make the hiring decision other than a department head, and it's the department head's relative, then we don't want them to make that decision without our approval. I think there will be other ways for an MEO to be hired by someone other than their relative.
Well, in the case that here we'd be talking about the head of the department who's a public officer. I think it's a 5-year appointment, or whatever the term of appointment is. Isn't Mr. Hajos the appointing officer? I don't know. I guess I'm asking that question. Who is the appointing officer, Trish, in DPW for an MEO?
Yos.
The department head is.
Okay, so you're right, Ron. You're right.
So no, and I'm good with that. And I think that should have to come to the board. And quite frankly, we might approve it. God knows we're having difficulty getting MEOs, right? So I mean, there's a case to be made for something like that. But I'm trying to, you see what I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to say that in instances where there's an obvious conflict, where there's no competitive process, that the alternative is this road, not that road, is what I'm saying. And ultimately, the decision would fall to the board. So with that change you're proposing, I think I'm good with this. Thank you.
Great. Yes. All right. I do know that Supervisor Stroud had a comment earlier. I don't see him on right now, but I'm hoping he'll pop back in if he wants to speak to this. Is there any further discussion on the substance of what we've got before us? I don't think I have a motion. Do I have a motion, Amanda? No. Supervisor Driscoll.
Just a quick comment. Thank you, Chairwoman. Maybe it's just the way that my brain works, but I've heard two conversations. I've heard discussion about the nepotism, and I've also heard discussion about the financial disclosures. I understand that they both fall under our discussion, but to me, they're almost two entirely different discussions. So I hope that in going through the process that we give proper time to both and maybe treat them separately, even though I'm sure they'll probably come under the same resolution. So thanks.
Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah, I was going to make a motion to move this.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Is there a second?
I will with discussion.
Thank you, Supervisor Conover. Thank you. And to Supervisor Driscoll's point, this is moving together. It's one policy. If there are any questions about that form in the back, that now's the time to bring them up. I'm very happy with the shorter form.
Oh, I am too. I just want to make sure that the entire board is clear, because I kind of got lost in jumping from one discussion to the other.
All right.
Moving fast this morning.
We're moving fast. I'm going to call the question.
Can I ask a question? One thing, Claudia, I'm on the committee. I just, the person that drafted the disclosure, what's important to me is that it not only meet the letter, but the intent of the disclosure law. And I just don't know who, and I see Ben shaking his head, yes. And I just would like to know from the person that actually drafted this and looked at the provision of law, that I'd like to have some affirmation that yes, it not only meets the letter, but it meets the intent of the law. And I don't know who drafted it and put it before us today. I heard a lot of names, but I'm sure one person did the homework on this, probably somebody out of our attorney's office, but I don't know. But I just would like to hear someone say that yes, it meets the letter and the intent of the law, because all of us have to fill this out, right? Annually, we have to fill this thing out, or is it when we're elected? No, annually. And I just want to make sure that what we're completing is as it should be.
Right. I will turn to Mr. Terwilliger about the fulfilling the law. I would say to you, Supervisor Conover, that the intent and the spirit is up to us, how we want that to be played out. And this is what you have in front of you, because many supervisors wanted that form to be shorter. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Terwilliger about the law, because I know he did look at that.
On this, many counties do have a shorter form, and the state law does authorize a county to draft and create their own form of financial disclosure for it if they had an ethics policy in place prior to January 1991, which Warren County did. It had ethics laws in place prior to that, so we're kind of grandfathered in, if you want to use that term, where the county can then create its own financial disclosure form. And the purpose and intent really is just to look at what we might call close nepotism to see, does someone have an interest in a financial interest this way with a family member in a contract with the county government? That's really the main focus of the state laws. Do you have a financial interest in a contract with the government? Are you going to benefit financially from approving a contract or some other endeavor using taxpayer money funded through the government? And is that going to come back around and benefit you or a family member, a spouse, a child, a parent? Is that going to provide that person? And that's really what they want to know. Is this going to help you in some way that you're not telling or disclosing in the absence of a disclosure requirement like these forms or any of the law that we have? And that's really the purpose of it. And I do believe that this does meet that. One other comment I had was that technically under the general municipal law, the Board of Ethics is the repository of these financial disclosure statements. We do not have a physical location for our Board of Ethics for Warren County. We've always stored them at the county attorney's office. In that sense, the county attorney's office is the physical location of them. And when those documents are foiled, the redactions occur at that office. But the Board of Ethics has a legal control of them and can take them and get them whenever it wants to do any review or any of its investigative purposes.
Thank you, Robert. I saw that.
Chairwoman, I know we need to move along. Could I have a definition of family member? I mean, what I heard was more immediate family member, but I just want to know what is meant by family member. Is it any blood relative, third generation removed? What exactly do you mean when you say family? Well, it's important because I don't. What Mr. Twilliger, what do you mean when you say family?
It's defined in the policy, in the local laws, Ron, in the definition section 3 on page 1 of Schedule A.
Just give me a moment.
Yep. I'll read it to you. It's short. Minor, it means a spouse, minor child, or dependent.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call the question at this point, everybody. All those in favor from the committee, please say aye.
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 Aye. I'm aye.
I oppose.
Thank you. And that's the full committee. So there we have it. It passes. All right. Good. So we've covered number 9. We're going to jump backwards. We have a referral from the Tourism and Occupancy Tax Committee. Supervisor Garrity is here. If we have any questions, it's related to setting the salary of the Tourism Development and Events Coordinator. Could I have that motion, please?
I'll make it.
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Seconded by Supervisor McGowan. Any discussion? I think we're okay with this one. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries. This one, County Treasurer Swan was not able to be here today, and he asked that we hold off on this one, so we will keep this on the pending item. Amanda, thank you. Number 9, we covered. Number 10, this came out of our rules of the board discussion and the guests that we had at our recent meeting about designating someone to be our parliamentarian that the chair would look to for advice before making a ruling on something like a point of order. And it was their recommendation that the municipal clerk, which here we have Amanda Allen as our board of the clerk, and that's the resolution that you have in your packet at item number 10. Supervisor McGowan, is that a motion?
Yes, with a little discussion.
Sure. Let me get a second. Supervisor Driscoll, thank you. Go ahead, Supervisor McGowan.
Amanda, you are, Claudia, I'd like to ask Amanda, is she aware of all the responsibilities and concerns that she might have before taking on this position?
Well, thank you, Supervisor McGowan, for asking that through the chair. And I will provide the floor to Ms. Allen. And I will also say she has worked very hard on her county trainings, and I know she has been a great asset to all of the county chairs who have served this county. Ms. Allen?
It's my understanding that as parliamentarian, it's basically if there's a point of order or something in the chair, before the chair makes a ruling, if they need advice or something, that I would give that to her, and then she chooses to either, or he would either take that or leave it when they make their decision. So as I see it, my duty would be to pull out my Robert's Rules of Order and find what the proper section is and pass that along, and that aids her or he in making a decision.
Well, I have to say, I have my fullest confidence that you could pull that out quickly and throw it hard. So, hey, welcome. I'm happy to hear that.
Supervisor Hogan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't sit on your committee. Is it okay if I?
Absolutely.
I would just like this to be accompanied by a recommendation to increase the training budget line for the clerk of the board, so she can obtain whatever training she wants in order to be able to speak to this stuff.
Okay. I would ask that we put that on as a pending item for next month, Amanda.
Okay.
Okay. But for this one, designating our parliamentarian, any further discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? No, because Amanda is great. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, everyone, it's been a very long meeting. You have the authorized fillings for the positions. I'm afraid to ask, but is there anything further to come before the committee today? All right. There is no one here from the public in our meeting. I don't know if Don Lehman is on to give us any updates if there are public comments on the YouTube.
Hello, Chairwoman Bramer. I am still here. And we have no public comments on YouTube.
Thank you so very much. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Conover. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you, everyone. Good job today.
No, thank you.